Hey guys, we are on lesson 6, Shapes of People. Okay, so this lesson is going to introduce geometric shapes and freeform shapes that make up people and objects in art and around us in our environment. So artists use geometric and freeform shapes in portraits.
Think about masks. What shapes are used on masks for the eyes, nose, and mouth?
Piensen en máscaras. ¿Qué figuras se usan en las máscaras para los ojos, la nariz y la boca?
Okay, so today's lesson is going to be about you're going to identify the use of geometric and freeform shapes that make up people and objects in works of art and in the environment. And you're going to, for your activity, your optional activity, you should be able to draw a portrait using geometric and freeform shapes. Okay, and for your art history and culture, you should be able to identify and compare the use of geometric and freeform shapes in 18th and 20th century portraits. Okay, here we go. All right, so look at these two portraits on these two pages. Both of these pictures are portraits, huh? So one is a portrait of a person, and this one is by an artist named Alan Cole. Let's look at him real quick. So a little bit about Alan Cole. He was born in 1884, and he passed away in 1970. He was born in West Virginia. After he graduated college, he went on as a railroad porter and then a waiter before moving to Cleveland, Ohio. There he met someone who introduced him into photography, and he started with a studio, and let's see here. He became the very first professional African-American photographer. Okay, so even though it looks like it's more modern than this, it really is kind of old also. This one's by an artist named Thomas Gainsborough. This is a very famous one. They call him the Blue Boy. Now, Thomas Gainsborough was 1727 to 1788. He was an English painter, and he was famous for painting portraits and landscapes and pictures. He was born in Suffolk, and he went to London in about 1740, and he started up as a portrait painter, and he basically just painted the heads of people. In 1768, he was chosen to be a member of the Royal Academy. He moved to London, and then he started painting professionally. While he still really liked landscapes better, he made his money creating portraits. He painted a lot of landscapes and drawings and became a favorite painter of the royal family, where he painted this one particular picture. So anyway, we look at these two paintings. This one was the 1920s, and this one was both of these paintings show geometric and freeform shapes. Okay. What do you think Thomas Gainsborough didn't take a photograph in his subject? Why do you think Thomas Gainsborough didn't? Because they didn't have photography back then. They had no way of, they haven't invented cameras back then. So if anybody wanted a portrait back then, it was usually someone who had a lot of money, who could afford someone to paint a portrait of them. They used portraits like cameras. They didn't have cameras back then, so if you wanted a picture of yourself or of someone, you had to commission an artist to paint a picture of you. Okay. Look at your face in a mirror next time and think about the shape of your face. Use your index finger to trace the shape of your face. You can think about the shape of your face. Is it square? Is it oval? Is it heart shape? Those are things that you want to consider when you're creating a portrait of someone. So we're going to look for the geometric and freeform shapes because they said that there's some both in here. Okay, let's see. We see circles in the wicker chair. Circular shapes in the wicker chair. I don't see circles. Oh, okay, I see them. So if we zoom in, you'll see the geometric shapes are circles. We also see circles in spirals, but the shapes we were talking about, these little circles up here. And let's look at the rectangles that we see. And this one right here, you'll see you could find a rectangle that says in the boy's jacket. And its pockets. I see a rectangle. There's a pocket right there. Okay. So those are some freeform shapes that you see. Not a rectangle. I see rectangle. Okay. That's a very nice picture. Very fancy. Are there any triangles? So in the man's left arm, his arm is bent, so it forms a triangle right here. In the blue boy, the bottom part of his jacket forms a triangle. Oh, right here. Okay. Or right here. The bottom part of his jacket forms triangles that you see. Also his elbow. And the things on his lapels. Freeform shapes. Well, I guess if we looked hard enough, we could find freeform shapes. His whole body is a freeform shape. Because remember, people are considered freeform shapes. And the background, there's a bunch of freeform shapes in the background of this one. His hat is a freeform shape. His bow is freeform. Things on the floor, things that are not rectangle, triangles, or geometric shapes. This big blob in the back is a freeform shape. He is a freeform shape. Remember, freeform shapes are shapes that are not geometric shapes, that don't have names. Oval shapes. Oval shapes, his eyes are oval. And then his face is oval. Their heads are oval. So basically, when we look at these pictures, we just want to see if you can identify different shapes that we learned about. So shapes are all around us. You've already seen different shapes in the landscape paintings on page 36 and 37 when we talked about freeform shapes. We talked about, excuse me, how freeform shapes can be found in nature, and those are things like puddles, clouds, flowers. Those are all examples of freeform shapes. And people are also examples of freeform shapes.
What shapes do you see in objects in the classroom?
Or in your house.
¿Qué formas ven en los objetos en el salón de clases?
So geometric shapes are usually found in objects that are made by people. So buildings, furniture, road signs, these are some examples of geometric shapes where you would find like buildings are like squares and rectangles. Road signs, this is what shape? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 sides, an octagon. Most objects have one shape, primary shape. Some objects are made up of a bunch of smaller shapes. So, for instance, this is like one big rectangle, but then if you go back and you look at it, the windows are rectangles. Parts of the roof are like triangles. Okay, so if you look hard enough, you can find all kinds of shapes. You could practice drawing shapes of an object. You could choose an object from your room, find the smaller geometrics or freeform shapes in it. If for practice on a sheet of paper, you could draw an object by putting together the smaller shapes that you see, kind of like Minecraft, or kind of like when you're playing with blocks or Legos. You take those and you build and you create different things. So you could take a bunch of freeform shapes and geometric shapes and kind of like add them together to create something. Here's a geometric shape that a student used in their portrait. A lot of times when you guys just draw pictures, you're not realizing that you're actually embedding different shapes and objects in your picture without even knowing it. She created a portrait. Remember, a portrait is a picture of someone. Self-portrait is a picture of yourself. In this picture, she's created different shapes, like just without even knowing it. The door behind her is a rectangle. This right here, I guess, is the doorknob, is a rectangle. You have circle, which is a geometric shape. The girl itself is a freeform shape. The flower is a freeform shape. This bear is a freeform shape. The burger is a freeform shape. See, we're analyzing artwork, but really, when you create artwork, you don't even think about it. So you have all these things in your artwork. Her nose is like a freeform shape. Lips are like a freeform shape. So, what you're going to do for extra credit if you want to, what shapes of the faces of some people you know? What are some of the shapes of the face? Let's read this again. What are the shapes of the faces of some people you know? You do know that everybody has a different shaped face, okay? Draw a portrait, which means a picture of a person, using geometric and freeform shapes. Ask someone in your house. If we were in a class, we would use a classmate. If you're in your house, ask Mama if you can draw a picture of her. If you don't have anybody at all, you can always go look in the mirror and draw a picture of yourself. Select some objects to use as props to draw, to put behind you so you don't have just a plain wall behind you. Have your model use these props and they can pose and hold things, kind of like the blue boy. Carefully look at your model. Find the geometric and freeform shapes. You can use chalk to draw it, or your pencil, or your crayons. Use these lines to create geometric and freeform shapes that you see and fill the shapes in. Example, this is just a picture. See where he's working with someone, or she's working with someone. She told him to hold a book, so she could draw a picture of him holding a book. Oh, look, she changed the picture. It's not a boy. This is, I can't tell if that's a girl or not. Maybe it's a girl. But she drew a ponytail, and then she put the sweater on, which is red, and then she created the book that the student's holding, and that is a self-portrait. The book is geometric, and the person is free-form shapes. So, if you created your own artwork, you should be able to describe what you're wearing in the portrait. What props did you use? Where did you use your geometric shapes? Where did you use your freeform shapes? Give your portrait a title, and then invite your model to give the portrait a title. Did your portrait turn out the way that you had hoped? Sometimes you have to practice over and over again, and artists sometimes will create so many different versions until they find one that they like, okay? If you were to recreate your portrait, how would you improve it?
What are the most common geometric and freeform shapes used to draw a portrait?
I guess you have to find out.
¿Cuáles son las figuras geométricas y abstractas más comunes que se utilizan para hacer un retrato?
So draw a portrait, and then when you're done, go back and try to figure out all the different shapes that you used in it. You are done for the day. You need to go onto your quiz and take your quiz on this information that we just learned about, okay? Have a great day.